Hello everyone, welcome to a review of day 3. This is the wave day, or one of sort of 2 wave days, but this was absolutely an extraordinary experience, and I have to admit I was terrified for 2 days before this day came. We knew the wind field was coming and the jet stream was going to drop down, and the wind forecast was absolutely extreme. Rick Walters crushed everyone with 110 mile an hour speed. Pete Alexander second, 106. Sam Zimmerman was third at 101. And Rick and Pete are sort of Minden locals and experts, really strong pilots in the wave, and there were a lot of people here who didn't know anything about it, with the exception of Eric Nelson here in a 15-meter glider, who was fourth at 100.31. I'd never been in wave except for once out at a contest, just sort of weak wave in the Appalachians, and the only reason I knew I was in it is because I was leeching off of Carl Streetick. There's a good video with some video of that, but I've read about it, and the locals here did a really good job of trying to educate us on what was going on. But when I saw the wind forecast and at the 9 o'clock briefing, there was already 25 to 35 knots on the peaks, 35 to 40 knots forecast at 18,000 feet. But the biggest thing was, and this isn't really depicted here in Dave Nadler's blog, but there were gusts to 60 knots at 10 o'clock in the morning on the top of Mount Rose, which is just 10 miles to the north of Minden, and there's going to be 40 knot winds on the ground. Slide Mountain here, the one that they used, had 42 knots, gusting to 63 knots. It was just crazy, in my opinion, to even fly on this day. But I'm really glad that the guys sort of forced me into this, because it wasn't that bad, and the flying experience was really extraordinary. And without that confident push, I may not have actually taken it. Now, then once we get up and go, I had a pretty good strategy for the day, and that was to latch on to one of the local superstars. And I was fortunate enough to find Pete Alexander and Rick Indribo in the start area, and kind of latch on as tight as I could, and I leached the hell out of Pete, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. I learned more in my one lap of Minden on this task in wave by following Pete than I probably could have done on my own in a year. And once you get the hang of it and actually go through it, it's pretty comprehensive. There's little bits of complexity to it, but when you have to figure it out in the blue with no markers and no clouds, you really have to visualize and think about where you are in space, and it was absolutely extraordinary. So let me walk through this, and actually I'm going to pause and pull up, try and find the wave diagram that they used to sort of train us. Hold on a second. Okay, so I pulled up this quick diagram, and I don't think it's the right one. And they had some particular feelings about how some of these diagrams were wrong and all this, but essentially you want stable air, and you want increasing wind speed with altitude. And the profile for this day was very good for wave, although it was far too dry to have cap clouds or lenticular clouds of any sort. And they talked a lot about how the dynamics of the atmosphere can change the frequency of the wave. And so here you see the primary wave, then there'll be a secondary wave and a tertiary wave. And actually what happened today is Rick Walters figured out that the secondary wave was actually in a line between the 3 turn points, Carson City and the one to the south in Minden, and just ran right up and down those and ends up winning the day with a 111-mile-an-hour average. Pete Alexander and Rick Andrebo figured out on this particular day that the primary wave was actually setting up very, very close to the Sierras, or the mountain range right to the east of Lake Tahoe. And I actually backed off from following Rick. He went so close into the mountains within a mile or half a mile. And keep in mind, the forecast is it's blowing 60 knots on the top of the ridges. And as a flatland pilot, I'm absolutely terrified of what I'm going to find in here. And then I actually was lucky enough to kind of know where he was. And 5 minutes later, as the sniffer, he called the CD and said, whatever his tail number is, I'm in 13 knots, a mile away from the mountain. So I was able to look, find him and see him, and have the guts to come in to that point. And it was violent and bumpy and turbulent, and I climbed up and got out of the wave. And the experience of going from that violent, turbulent air to the smoothness of wave on this extreme of a wave day, is probably the coolest experience in soaring of my life. And once you get through that, you're in this extraordinary situation with so much energy and freedom to really run back and forth wherever you are, and that happens to be the task that they set up for the day. So speaking of that, let me pull out of the 3D here a little bit, but you can see here the task. And if I zoom out just a little bit more, I forgot the name of the turn point. Let me look here. So the turn point down to the south is Colville, and so you can see it here, and then you can see the really strong mountains, and then valley here, which is prime wave producing, sort of the classic Minden stuff. But the primary wave was very, very close to this mountain. And if you look here, let me zoom out a little bit. This is what Pete Alexander, Rick Andrebo, and I, me following them, ran to sort of figure out the primary wave. Rick Walters was smart enough to figure out where the secondary wave was, and that happened to be right about here. Now normally the primary wave is out here over this highway that goes down into Minden. This is Minden right here, and here's the airport. But the primary wave was actually right there where the hand is. It was really, really close. And what we did, what they did and I followed, was run in the wave up here very close to the mountains, hit that turn point, come back, hit Minden, come in back into the primary, and kind of run down like this. And then at some point here we lost the wave, and then turn directly downwind and hook up with the secondary wave, hit Colville, and then run out in the secondary, and then slowly worked out of it, and then jump and go through tremendous sink and lose a ton of altitude, get back up in the primary wave. Well, Rick figured out that you didn't need to do that, and I've actually never looked at Rick's trace here. I'm sort of excited to see what happens, but this was absolutely school bells ringing day for me, and I think a lot of the other pilots that had never experienced wave before. So this actually would be comical watching everybody try and figure out how to get up here. So here we go. You'll see here that 9-8 and Yankee Charlie, Rick and Andrebo, have been sniffing for a long time, and went up early. They were up for, I don't know, a half hour, struggling to get up, almost landed out, got real low, 1,000 feet over the field, but eventually got back here into the rotor and the secondary wave and got up. And 9-8, you can see here, is at 16,000 feet, running along. So here I am, and I had 3.1 knots and turbulent. I'm not really sure where to go, and there is where I jumped onto to Yankee Charlie here, and can see him looking for the primary wave. And I'm not going to go any closer. So I stopped there for 3 knots or something, and I know I'm way past the highway here, and I'm not really sure what's going on. And you can see up here he's searching, and I'll show you how close he is. He's right on the elevation change there, and I need to get him in here. I'm going to pause here for just a second. Whoops, that's the wrong button. Okay, so I'm back, and what I did is I added Rick's trace here, Yankee Charlie, just so you can see his climb rate. But you have to look at my perspective. Here I am. I'm past the highway considerably, a couple miles, and he goes way in, and it looks like he's right on the mountain to me. And my visual of that is just massive turbulence and sink, and I'm thinking it's blowing 60 here. I can see the lake, the whitecaps. It looks like a hurricane on Lake Tahoe, and I'm thinking there's no way in hell I'm going in there. And you can see Pete ran the secondary wave here, went down through the sink, and now is jumping into the primary wave. So he's exploring and kind of charting things out. So anyway, here's Rick. He's in there, and he climbs up and gets into 9.7 knots. So he right here at this point found the wave, and he made that call, and I saw him, and when I saw that, I said, okay, well, he survived, I can survive too. And it's worth noting we're dry. We had to take off with quite a crosswind this day, so all the gliders are dry. And I come over and find 7 knots. So I can't really tell you at what point I'm in the wave, but I'm at 14,000 feet, so I'm assuming that I'm in it. And once I'm in it, I'm not quite sure what to do with it. But you can see I'm not thermaling anymore. I'm flying straight. And I turned downwind, went through the sink, coming back up. This must be the rotor on the front side of the wave. And I get back up to 15. And I'm not quite sure what to do with it. But anyway, this is sort of fascinating to watch. So Rick got up and ran down to the wave and picked up Pete. And lucky I'm high enough here, and they come rolling right by me. And so I get the bright idea, all right, I'm going to follow those guys because they know what they're doing. And other guys are having a lot of trouble. You can see there's Doug Jacobs, Dennis Linekin, Kilo Tango, Tom Kelly. For Bravo is actually struggling right here. He must have been a late launch. So I'm one of the only guys to actually get up at this point. In fact, I don't think anybody else is up. So I'm up with the sniffers. They happen to be the 2 locals, and they're starting to show me what to do here. And you can see we're running up towards the Carson turn. They drive down and dip into it. I see that happen. Say, okay, I got that. And link in here a little bit more tightly. And now we're going to do the same thing down to the south. It's worth taking a look here. But a lot of these guys are still struggling. DJ looks like he got up there. So this was actually really beneficial before the start, but they go quite a ways down here, and I know that they came from quite a ways down here as well, so I know you know that the wave is probably going to work in this direction, and I'm not quite sure how the heck in 60 miles an hour of wind that we're going to get down here, and what's going on over here. I absolutely have no idea how to do this transition, and you know, all I'm thinking about is the 20 knots of sink that I can get myself into. So looks like they're starting to think about descending into the start area here. You can see the start cylinder here in the 2D. But I'm not going to let go of these guys. I'm locked on, so to speak. And here, Yankee Charlie is showing me the path down here in what I guess is the primary. And so he takes us a few miles further down. And I can see flashes of guys still low down here in the valley, and feeling rather fortunate to have gotten up with that kind of company. And there they go, spoilering down. And I'm going to spoiler down with them. Slow it down a little bit. So we're down below, they're 2 minutes below 12,000. And looking for the climb. And there we go, 8.7 knots through 12, through 13. And there's quite a group in here. I didn't remember this many folks. Well, no, there's one of those. Whiskey 3, he's a little lower. So anyway, maybe this is going to be good, maybe this is going to get bad, because maybe these guys are going to leave me right away. But I'm happy to be with them. So we climb out to 14,000 and off they go. So we're the first starters. And look at that, down to 49 knots, climbing at 8.3. Just hovering here, basically. Probably have, well, 49 knots of ground speed, so that's into 40 miles an hour of wind here, so it's blowing like snot. And if you look back into the valley, there's still a lot of people really low and really struggling. Anyway. Whiskey 3 gets up right with us. 9-8, I remember this, just absolutely blasts away. And I have to go with him because I don't know what I'm doing. But he's rumbling right there. He's going, 120 knots of ground speed into 40 knots of wind. So we are screaming at this point. I don't know what the airspeed is, but it's fast. So indicating 110 miles per hour. He's indicating 115. So we're right up to 17,000 feet, going like crazy, and here's where school begins. I've lost sight of Yankee Charlie, and I don't remember why we turned at this particular point, but 90-degree turn directly downwind, and I've fallen a little bit below 98 right now, so I'm a little bit nervous. And this is a pretty amazing thing that happens right here. We're through tons of sink, and then right at zero sink, and this is after talking to Pete after the task, he started his turn right when the sink got to zero. So the lift got to zero. He didn't wait till it started to increase. because it's so windy, he's getting blown downwind through the band. So he started his turn right at 0, and the little bit of time that it takes to turn sort of positioned him perfectly. And then he slows right down to 45 knots. So here he is slowing down to 37 miles per hour ground speed, and starts climbing. And you can see 15,000, 16,000. Now meanwhile, Rick took a totally different line and ran down these mountains. And Yankee Charlie, we're at 16,000, pretty close to 16,000, and he's down at 13,000. So it's a 3,000 foot altitude gain for us, and a lot less trouble finding the wave here. This quote unquote secondary wave. So this is interesting. We should really be following Rick here, but you can see Rick didn't even mess with this primary and started up on the leeward side of the start cylinder, and has essentially caught us already. He's a little lower, but he's the winner of the day by a huge margin, so we'll keep an eye on him throughout the flight here. So Yankee Charlie does beat us into the turn, but he's really low. He's 12,000 feet. We're at 15,500. And we also go all the way to the back. Well, Pete does, with me leaching heavily. All right, so now we're in the secondary wave. We're right where 4 Bravo was. But this is a mistake, and I think Pete would admit it. We sort of work upwind here, and I think we're reading pretty much 0 sync. But back here is the strength, where Rick was able to zip back and forth at 120 miles per hour or so. So we're still doing well. We're at 16.6 and 16.3 together here. But we're sort of, we're in the weak lift, and we have to go through a lot of sync to get up here into the primary. And we didn't know that there was a secondary down here. And look at the gap between these two. It's quite large. That's probably 10 miles. This is a 5-mile radius, so quite a huge frequency there. So now we're starting to come down. We're already down through 13.5. So the sync here is just extraordinary. Let me run it back a little bit to where we start to taper off. So there, that looks like the peak. We're at 15.5. And we start to fall out of it, so Pete puts the nose down and accelerates. But we're going through a lot of sync. 6, 8, 9, 20, 15 down, 17 down, 18 down. It's huge sync. So we go from 15.5 to 12.5 in just a matter of a minute. And now we're back where we started trying to find. And Pete pulls up there into a huge climb and just sort of out zooms me. And now he's just sort of left me. So he's got 500 feet on me, and he's already in the energy, so he leaves. And this is sort of the beginning of my tow from Pete, because I'm going to lose him as we get back into Minden here after Carson. So we're back in the energy, climbing back up 16,000. He's 700 feet above me now. But I'm still hanging on. And lo and behold, after that whole exercise, being 3,000 feet above him, we are, let's see, 4 Bravo is right at 17,000, going 150 miles an hour, and is quite a bit higher than we are. So he's started behind us and has essentially passed us. And he's also, the secondary wave is going to take him right over Carson, where we're going to have to go through a lot of sync to get out there. So we'll keep him in the shot here. Tom Kelly and 7-Eleven. So Pete wanted to get directly upwind of the turn and then make his turn. Now the next turn point here is a 1 mile radius to Minden, and kind of watching 4 Bravo here to see what he did. This is interesting. So Rick turns downwind. He comes out of here, doesn't like it, he's in sync, and then turns downwind to get back into the wave. And he's still higher than us at 14,000. We've turned to kind of get back up into the primary. So you do what you know, and Rick knows it's working back here, and we sort of only know that it's working up in the primary. So we're down to 12,000 again, down in the dumps. 4 Bravo fell back and climbed up to 14,000. And there we go, hitting Minden. And Tom Kelly's onto the secondary as well. But yeah, 4 Bravo comes in 2,000 feet higher. So now he's started behind, came into the first turn point low, and we're even, but he's 2,000 feet higher. And we have to go through tremendous sink to get up here to the primary. So there he goes, turning back. And I'll keep it kicked over here so we can watch what he did. So we're falling like stones through 9,000, 10,000 feet. Rick jumps back and gets right into the wave immediately and is in a 10-knot climb, taking a couple turns there, and is almost up to 14,000 feet. So that was definitely easier than what we're doing. We came in here at 12, and now we're down at 9, and really going to struggle. And it's very bumpy in here as well. Sitting my head on the canopy quite a bit today. But Pete's got it figured out. He's 13.5 knot climb, so he connected with wave there pretty low. I did pretty good, 9.4 knots for almost 5,000 feet. But if I look back here for, whoops, sorry, for Rick is already leaving. He's at 17,000 feet. So now he's 3,000 feet above me and 1,000 feet above Pete. Pete ends up second for the day, and Rick is first by about 5-6 miles per hour. So now I've lost my wingman, and I'm kind of on my own, and this will be a lot uglier than the last lap, trust me. But I'm still climbing here at 10 knots or so. So I did find it. 16,000. There's Rick, there's Pete, and there's me. So Pete makes his turn downwind at 17,000 feet from the primary to the secondary. And I'm up to 17,000 feet as well. It'll be interesting to see when I make a turn. I have lost sight of him now, so I'm having to use my own brain. Look out. So I'm kind of happy with zero sync here, and I completely missed the spot where Pete turned, and I'm just happy to take zero sync. And there I kind of make a 30-degree turn, and here I plummet through the sink, 15, 16 knots down, 14,000 feet, and Still going down, still going down. 13,000. So 14,000, and there I found left. So what did Pete do to me? So Pete's still neck and neck with Rick. Pete's at 15,000, Rick's at 16,000. Pete's in a strong climb and going fast, so he's just dusted me. And I finally made it into the secondary, but I'm pretty low, 14,000. And I'm not really sure, that was probably too sharp of a course correction there. And I'm basically in zero sync. So here I am coming into Colville. I just touch it and go. Had enough of that. And I'm S-turning, trying to, I've read that in books. I mean, you're trying to find the best strength. I'm probably making too big of corrections. So here I find it, I go through 5 knots, but I probably go right past it. Nope, still in 5 knots, so that's good. Climbing back up through 16,000, so I connected with something here. And but I'm going fairly slow. And I get myself back up to 17,000 without a lot of turning. So that's good. But you can see here, let me zoom out a little bit, that Rick has just launched. He's almost past Minden. And where is 9.8? And he's running, he's figured it out now, and so he's running in the secondary as well. So I'm not smart enough to figure that out, and I go for the primary, and I get killed this time. So I will reluctantly show you that. Okay, so here I am. Here's Pete, here's Rick, first and second for the day respectively. And I'm up to, I was up to 16, but now I'm coming down, so I've made my turn for the primary. And just watch that video, 20 knots down. Yeah. Not as bad as, well, there we go, 18 knots down again. I'm going fast, 150 into 40 miles an hour of wind. And, well, I didn't get too low, 12,000 feet. So that's not too bad. And I pull up into a climb. So at 12.7, I'm doing that S-turning thing, trying to find the strength. And it looks like instead of circling and climbing, I am going to be trying to do it in a straight, oh, there we go, 14 knots. So I finally found the energy and take 2,000 feet up at 10 knots. So that'll get me back up to 16,000. But looking at the damage, here are Rick and Pete. They've touched, and now they're going to go and extend and go get a couple more turn points, which I actually do as well. But I make a huge mistake and lose, I don't know, 70 miles, 80 miles of distance by missing Minden and not having 2 turn points between. I basically go and do the same track, so I hit Carson City here, and then I go back down to Colville, but I forget to hit Minden on the way back. So I go all that distance down and back, but I'm only scored as if I went Carson to Minden, and I lose all of that distance. But it's a learning experience, and at least I learned how to move with one lap with Pete, how to move back and forth in the wave. So I've done a good job here. One climb and still climbing, got myself back up to 17,000. But I only know what Pete's taught me at this point, and I have no idea that the secondary wave is working back here. And you can see most of the experienced guys had figured that out. Dave Nadler here is running that track. I'm sure that, oh no, DJ's running up to the primary too. So Doug Jacobs was doing the same thing. Interesting. Alright, so I'm just holding at 17, feeling my way down to the Carson turn. Still climbing, as a matter of fact. And go to the back a bit and decide, hey, that worked good. I'm going to jump right back into the primary. And he's not on this, but I was with John Cochran at this point. So I just had a complete brain freeze here. I knew the rule. I knew I needed to have 2 turn points there. I'm looking at the map. I'm thinking about it, but I just forgot. And I'm so focused on working with John Cochran and trying to maximize against him and keep up with him that I forget. And I kind of follow him down towards here, but completely forget about what he's doing. And I think in the back of my mind I was going to hit this one, but you know, it got challenging for me and I just forgot to do it. So yeah, that explanation really isn't that important, but that's what happened. I would have done a lot better for the day though. I still got 900 some points, but with that 70 miles I think I would have had you know, 960 or 980 or something. So it was a big mistake. So right back up to 17,000, it would have been incredibly easy to go bang bang and hit that. And there I am, I'm following John, I think, and that's the 2 mile finish ring. And so I get within a quarter mile of it or something, and I just forget to do it. So stupid. Let's look here. Yeah, you can see right here, this is the 1 mile ring, this is the finish ring, and I make the turn to go towards it, and John Cochran's in here with me, and maybe I was looking at the 2 mile ring on my computer or something, and I just blew it. So, meanwhile, 9.8 is all the way down into the Colville turn area. 4 Bravo's already hit it and returned. No, 4 Bravo used 16 double spring and then went back to Carson. So everybody's got their own idea here, and that actually would have made sense because this is quite a change in the terrain over here, and it probably required a readjustment to get back into the wave in this valley. So what Rick did was probably really smart. So 14.3, I remember really screwing this up and not wanting to deviate a lot. I didn't want to turn 90 degrees to this, and I just sort of run straight at it and end up losing a lot of altitude. And I also don't find the solid wave when I hit it. If you're going downwind, you can watch your vario and it just shows you right when to turn, and when you're sort of softly going at it at a shallow angle, it's not as obvious. So down to 14,000 here, and I should be up at 16 if I would have played it properly. But it doesn't really matter. This is just a hit Colville and come in and return situation. So I go back in and return, but I don't get any of this space. And you can see Rick here went to double spring, went back to Carson City, hit double spring again. Now that doesn't make sense. He's got to put something in between. Oh, he must have hit Pine Knot or something. Yeah, looks like he just touched Pine Knot. So he's doing laps of Carson City, Pine Knot, double spring, which are all lined up perfectly right on the secondary wave, and he's just increasing his speed. 190 miles per hour of ground speed right here. Unbelievable. So no wonder he has 111 average. 9/8's doing laps as well. I'll be coming in here shortly. You can see me right here. I think I was in world-class sync at this point. 10, 12, 15 down. And it looks like Rick's on his final glide here. 9/8 looks like he's doing more laps. And that's it. Well, I hope that was interesting. Let me go back to the score sheet. So Pete did 292. Rick did 287. They both flew for 45 minutes, or 35, 40 minutes over. I would have made it right. I would have had a really good task because I did 182, but I would have had another 70 miles and I would have finished right on time. So I actually had a halfway decent task, but I lost that distance. I haven't calculated exactly what it was, but I would have been up there. And you can see on this day, for making that mistake, I lost 164 points on Rick. I certainly wouldn't have been equal with Rick, but I would have been a lot closer. Actually, I would have been somewhere around John Cochran's speed, because John and I flew basically the exact same task with the exception of he touched Minden. So I guess I lost 63 points around that. But anyway, it was absolutely unbelievable. When we landed, it was blowing 30 with gusts on the ground, so we had to land on a little closed runway and touch down on the taxiway, and then come to a quick stop. It was actually really easy, but it was gusting to 60 on the mountain ridges that day and through the night and the next day. So anyway, that's day 3. Thanks for watching, and I'll be working on day 4 here soon. Thank you.